This conference will now be recorded.
Well, good morning. Good morning. Yeah. So, what was the topic? Last topic? Will take this. Okay. So, we are going through a bill trigger, which was bill periodically. So, what is bill periodically? Yeah. So, bill jobs in frequent intervals. Okay. You want to schedule some time, and then the job will be billed in the frequent schedule intervals. Okay. But the time format is it's a cron format. So which is minutes and then hours, then day of the month, and then day of the week. So this is a format. So we have seen some examples. So how we can schedule the jobs periodically. We are taking some examples. Now let's move on to start practically. Starting Jenkins server. Now, so take some job, take that project. This is a continuous integration SVN as a repository and as a build. Now, in this, configure and then build triggers and build periodically. So I go with for 0, 2, and then star, star, star. What does it mean? Every 2 minutes, but initially it has to be h/02. That means for every 2 minutes. You start with h/02 and then 2 minutes. But so that is your cron syntax, and then so save it, and so now that's a message. So this will be run next at March 18th around at 1:36 p.m. Okay. So what is that time? Is it master time or is it the node time? Master time or node time? Who is building the jobs? Who is triggering the jobs? Master, right? So that's master time. Okay. Well, so check that on the master. March 18th, 1:36. So let's configure it. Just a second and go with build triggers. So selected, and then is 1:36. Okay. So it should be bill number 4. Let's see. Yeah. So that's bill number 4 is triggered, and but that is in pending because of Linux node is offline. Let's take the node online. So where is the node? That's Linux node. So why this is offline? Let me check the configurations. And the node IP address is 137. Check the node IP. That's my node. It's 139. Okay, right. So that's 139, and save it. Launch. Then as soon as the node comes back online, your job should be in progress. So this is online. Yes. Now the node is online and then job is being triggered. Yes, that's triggered. Now, now look at the console output. So as usual, we know the output. That means pulling the code from the repository and then building it. So in this example, Subversion is a repository and is a build tool. Fine. But how do I know who has triggered this job? So usually in the other examples, so go with the previous builds. So we have seen started by admin user, right? So jobs are started by admin user. That means these are manual builds. Now the build we have done, which is build number 4, build number 5. So build number 5 was a failure. Build number 5 is also being triggered. Anyway, now go with the build number 5. We look into the why it's failure. We look into that. But so how do I know this build is triggered by my build trigger, which is build periodically? Started by timer. If you see any job is started by timer, that's nothing but your job is triggered automatically, and the build trigger is what's a build trigger? Build periodically. Okay, that is how you identify your build trigger, which is build periodically. Now, so building remotely, and then why it's a failure? Failed to update. So what is that? No route to host. Host is unreachable. What does it mean? Host is unreachable. What is that? So as soon as you get this error message, wherever it is, so not only in this case, everywhere, host is unreachable means its IP is incorrect. Okay, or else, so might be some security group issues anyway. But in this example, try this example. Copy that. So what is that URL? This is SVN URL. Is it correct? That's my SVN repository URL. It's unreachable. Why that is unreachable? Let me check the configurations of my job. So configure it in the repository. That's a URL. But is it the correct IP address? Let's see. See, the my node plus Subversion repository both are running on same instance. Okay, don't get confused. Node plus Subversion repository both are running on same instance. You can use different instances. Okay, but so IP address is incorrect. Let's check that IP address over here. Yeah, that's because of IP address. Okay, so copy that IP address. Anyway, you can see here unable to access the repository. Now the error message is on. Save it. Now build number 6, build number 4, build number 5, build number 6. Look at that. There's a difference of 2 minutes. And build number 6 was also a failure because of the same issue. Host unreachable. Well, now wait for build number 7 to be triggered, and that build number 7 should be success. But whatever that is, the observation has to be whether the jobs are being triggered or not. That's what your observation should be, because the purpose. So why we are discussing this concept is, I just want to see the whether the jobs are being triggered for every 2 minutes using build trigger concept, which is built periodically. Okay. The result, yes, we can debug the results. Issues, we can debug them. So the next job should be at 1342, right? Now is 1342 yet? It's almost time. 1342.
Sir,
Yeah.
if the job was triggered but it is an error, at that time it will again get triggered or else it will stop the result.
The trigger is for build the job. So irrespective of the result. So it is building the job.
If again if it is a failure, no, sir, we have resolved the issues. Then again issue trigger means we have to do it manually or else automatically.
So That depends upon how the build trigger has been set up. So since I've set up my build trigger for 2 minutes, then it will be keep triggering the builds for every 2 minutes. Okay. So whether we resolve it or not, your build trigger don't understand it, because we resolve that issues manually. The triggers don't understand these things. So in that case, you can do a manual build. Okay. Yeah. So now it is build number 7. So this is success now. So it has pulled the code at what revision? Revision 25. So successfully pulled and then also build it. Now again, will it be triggered again after 2 minutes or not? Yes, will it be triggered? Yes, it will be triggered again after 2 minutes. That will be build number 7. Sorry, build number 8. Now it is 7, it will be build number 8. So this will keep triggered for how many minutes? The frequency is 2 minutes. Okay. So let's say I have set up my build trigger in such a way. I want to build my project something like every Friday around at 11 a.m. So what is the syntax for this? Cron syntax? It's 11:30 something. Okay, let's 11:30. 11. Day of the month, and then let's say weekdays. Weekdays. Okay. So this is my build trigger I have set up. But how about like, sorry, I forgot this Friday, right? I'm sorry, you are correct. It is, sorry, only 5, right? Oh, sorry. I was mistaken. Sorry. So 05. Okay. Now, so Friday around at 11:30 a.m. every day. Okay. So every Friday, every week. Let's say the job is triggered on week 1, and so on the in the week 1, the revision is something like 20, and then in week 2, again the job on week 2 means week 2 Friday, the job is triggered, and the revision is 25, and then week 3, what is that? Week 4, it is 20, let's say 30. Okay. Now, so this is my bill number 1, and this is bill number 2, and then bill number 3. So does it make any sense? So within that week, within the 3rd week, you see the 3rd week, 3rd Friday, what is the current repository revision number is? The previous build, what's the revision number? That means from week 2 to week 3, did developers do any commits? No. They did not change any commits to the repository. Then why do you want to build it? But according to the cron syntax I have set up, the job will be built every Friday, irrespective of your repository revisions. Is it clear? Understand? But I don't want to do it. I don't want to change the revisions, or else I don't want to build the triggers, trigger my jobs unless there is a change in the revision. So then this build trigger won't help us. The build trigger build periodically won't help us, because build periodically triggers irrespective of your repository revision changes or not. You see. So we have build number 7, build number 8, build number 9. In all these builds, what's the revision number they have built? Revision 25. I don't want to build my jobs unless there's a change, or else unless there is a new revision is changed on the repository. Clear? How we do that? Now we proceed with another build trigger, which is the second build trigger. Poll SCM. So what is that poll SCM? Poll means change. Where is that change? Where the change has to be? Source code management. That means repository. Yes. So if there is a new change is done on the repository side, or if there is a new poll has taken place on the repository or new revision, then the job will be triggered. Are they clear? Right. So let's try this. Now, so configure the job. And then source code management. Sorry, build triggers. Okay. And which build trigger? Poll SCM. I remove that build periodically. I go with poll SCM. And the poll SCM is also scheduled, right? How do you schedule it? Same cron syntax. Okay, it's the same cron syntax. Same. Let's do that again. For every 2 minutes, I go with. But what makes it different with build periodically? So even though it's same as your build trigger, which is built periodically, previous build trigger, the difference makes is only if the new changes takes place on the repository. Let's see. That's build number 10. And when this is supposed to be triggered again, build triggers, it has to be at 150, right? Let's see. So it was at 11:58. Sorry, 148. I'm sorry. It has to be again at 150. Now, so what is the time of the master? It's almost like 150. So is it triggered? But how do I know? Now, check this subversion polling log. Not yet. Just a few seconds. In subversion polling log, you can see that. Just a second. It should be available in the polling log. Refresh. And by the way, how Jenkins knows your subversion repository is changed? See, who is checking the revision numbers? Yeah, who is doing it? Where are the triggers? On Jenkins? So who is checking the revision numbers? How Jenkins knows the revision on the repository is changed? See, what is the concept here? What is the concept?
Previous workspace.
Previous workspace. Yes, correct. So, firstly, look at the previous build. In the previous build, what was the revision number? It has pulled it 25, and then now again the job is triggered actually, but I don't see a build. But when you go to subversion polling log, now here you can see that it has raised a poll request. It has raised a build request, but what is that? The repository is at still revision 25, means no change. Jenkins is checking the repository revision. Are we clear? So what is the revision number is? It is 25. But how Jenkins knows the revision is not changed? So it compares that with the previous build. In the previous build, it has checked out at revision 25, and the revision 25 still is same on the repository. So we can see that under polling log at 150 it is triggered, but since there is no change, job is not triggered. There is no build. But is it keep checking the revision numbers for every 2 minutes? Is it checking the is checking the revision number for every 2 minutes or not?
Yes.
It's checking it. So you can see that under the subversion polling log. Now again it has checked it at 152. So but still, since there is no change, the bill has not taken place. Okay, are we clear? So this is Jenkins' responsibility every time. So contact the repository and then check the revision number. It's 25. But what is the previous bill? In previous bill, what was the revision number? 25. Compares the revision numbers. So whose responsibility is to check the revision numbers? Jenkins' responsibility, right? But I want this type of communication happens the other way. So what does it mean? My repository has to send a communication to the Jenkins saying that there is a change on my repository. Now you can build it. Then Jenkins responds to the request and then start building it. Is it clear? Understand? Understand between poll SCM versus the new build trigger. So the poll SCM, Jenkins' responsibility is to check the revision numbers. But in the new build trigger, which we're going to discuss, in that concept, your repository is going to notify Jenkins. So Jenkins responds to the request and then triggers the job. So what is that build trigger? Now, that type of build triggers are only for GitHub. So the build trigger name itself is GitHub hook for Git SCM poll. So the name itself says it is for GitHub only, not for other type of repositories. But poll SCM, so you can use for GitHub or any other repositories. Even this, we can try that actually. You can try. I've shown you example for subversion, right? But you can try these build triggers even for GitHub repositories. Okay, try that. But this build trigger is only for what purpose? GitHub hook. So what is that GitHub hook? Now, so you understand the concept now? Whenever developers do a commit on the repository set, which is GitHub repository, that GitHub repository sends a communication to the Jenkins. But how the communication happens between GitHub to Jenkins? So for that reason, I just go to GitHub repository and I do some small setting there. And after you do the setting, GitHub Jenkins communication happens. So what is that setting? So where is our repository? So that's our job, continuous integration job. Configure it. Just a second. I sign out of this account. Sign into my account. So back to the repository. So Jenkins and repository URL. That's our repository. Now this is our repository. On this repository, go to settings. And there you have webhooks. Okay, go to webhook. So what is a webhook? So webhook will allow external services to be notified when certain events happen. So what is the event is? So let's say I'm doing a commit event or push event, and that event raises an external service or notifies external service. In our case, what is external service? Jenkins external service, but the Jenkins external service will be notified through GitHub. But how GitHub knows? So what is the Jenkins URL. You just set up the Jenkins URL. How to do it? Just a second. So just delete it. I have existing one, but delete it now. So what do? You just go with add a webhook and then payload URL. So what is the payload URL? Nothing but your Jenkins URL. Okay. So get the Jenkins URL. Copy the URL. URL / GitHub hyphen webhook. Okay, so this is what has to be a URL. Now this is a question. So what is payload URL? That's a question. So what is payload URL? Where do you use the payload URLs? So payload URL is a URL which is used in GitHub webhook purpose, and that payload URL will be notified. So whenever some changes are taking place on the repository. Okay, but that's it, nothing else. Just go with save it. So that's your URL. Now I do a commit over here. Let's do some commit. Let's modify some file. Just commit. As soon as it is committed, so go to settings, and then you have webhooks. So something is being notified, but the delivery was not success. Let's see why it was not success. So that was connection settings, connection failure. So why that connection failure failed to connect? Can someone tell me why it's failed? What is that? So where is GitHub? On cloud, right? Where is Jenkins? Local servers.
Yeah.
Is it possible to send a request from cloud to local? That's not possible. So you can access local to cloud, but cloud to local is never possible. So what is the reason? So these are all your local URLs. How can you access the local URLs? For example, you have your server. Let's say you have your virtual server. Can I access your virtual server from my system? No. Why? Because those are all your standalone settings, your private settings. I cannot access those settings. I can access them if we are connected within the network, right? But we are not connected with the network. So that's a concept. And this will be triggered only if your Jenkins is running on and cloud instance. So that's the reason I've been asking you to set up Jenkins on EC2. So this works only if Jenkins is running on cloud instances. Okay. So this is probably one of the questions. So they ask you questions, how your build's been automated. So you are using GitHub repository, how it has been automated. So we are using a build trigger called GitHub hook for git SCM code. Then where is your Jenkins is? Is running on local servers or cloud servers? Definitely it should be on cloud instances. It cannot be on local instances. If you say it's on local instances, it's a blunder mistake. That's not possible. Okay. So now you just try that from your side. These are all the settings you do. The only thing you do it from your side is, so this works again. So EC2 instance, that means your Jenkins master has to be running on EC2. Then only you can try this. Otherwise, you won't be able to do it. Are we clear? So the only thing you do it is just do a commit and observe that is there a build triggered or not. That's how it works. Okay. Well, so try that from your side. Then, so moving on to other builds. So this is an interesting one, which is built remotely. So what is build remotely? When we use build remotely concepts. Now, so I have a job. Take this job. This is my job. And if you want to build a job, so what do you do actually? For example, that is my job. I want to build that continuous integration job. So you must log in or not. You log into it and then you build it. But so there is a developer. He is not a DevOps team member. He is a developer, but he wants to build a job. Then am I going to provide my credentials to him? Because if you want to build it, you must log in. But I'm not going to provide him my credentials because of security reasons. What happens if I provide my credentials? He can even delete my job. He can do some changes, right? I don't want him to do it, but he wants to build a job. So let him build it, but without logging into Jenkins. Clear? So how does it work? That is what we call remote build. That means without logging into Jenkins, you can still build the jobs from outside of Jenkins. So that is what we call build remotely. How that is possible? Now, so go with first, configure it, and then take a build trigger. So which is, I go with build trigger build remotely. Okay, and then enter some token name over here. So what is the token name? You can give any token name. I give some token name. That should be any token name. There is no token name for this. There is no standard name. Just give some token name. And then, so we provide a URL to the external user. And what URL we're going to provide? Copy that. Okay. Now, so what is the first thing? Jenkins URL. Now, what is my Jenkins URL? That is Jenkins URL. Jenkins URL. And plus job and whatever it is, just leave that. Everything is same. And then at the end, it is token name. What is the token name? Capital. So mention the token name. And then save it. So go with now. Copy. Then enter that in the browser. Observe this. It is build number 7. Okay. And then just look at here. I want to save. The Windows node is offline, but let's take this online. So copy that. So I'm trying to launch my node. It's connected. So back to the dashboard and check the job. That's build number 7. And then console output started by remote host IP address. Why that IP address? So what is my IP address? Check that. IP config. That's where is it? 192.168. 242.1. You see the IP address there? That's IP address. So my browser is running on so-and-so browser. When this browser is running on with that IP address, that's the reason I see that triggered by the host. Now, when the build job was triggered by build periodically, what was the name? Started by timer. How about in Policium? Let me show you the example. So in Policium, we haven't seen that. So started by different one, right? We have seen that only it is not triggering. But what if I do a commit, will it be triggered? If that is triggered, then let's see what will be the name of the started by. Okay, let me show you the example. Actually, we forgot that. Let's go with that. So go with that, configure it. I will do a commit onto my repository. So what is my repository? That's a repository, right? So what is the current revision number on the repository? Repository 25. Okay, and then I clone this repository. I just go with some new folder. We already have this one, but let's remove that. I can clone it again. So how to clone it? SVN checkout, and then okay, it's revision 25. I'm going to do a change in some project file. So something like, let's say, modify, and save it, and right click and go with SVN commit. Done. So what's the revision number is? Current repository revision number is 26, and back to the job. So let's see, will it be triggered this time? Previously, when this was triggered, 28, right? And this has to be triggered again at 210. So, and the build number has to be 11. Let's see. So, what is the time? It's 210. It's almost time. Let's see. Boolean log. So, not yet. Yeah, that is build 11. And let me show you this console output. What is that? Started by SCM change. Right? Started by SCM change. Right. So if the build is triggered by build periodically build trigger, started by timer. If the build is triggered by the second build trigger, which is poll SCM, you can see that started by SCM change. And if the build is triggered by GitHub webhook, we can see that the build is triggered by GitHub hook. And then if that is triggered by remote user, you can see the remote user IP address. I mean, from where the job has been triggered, that IP address. So that was the one. You can see that started by IP address. So this is how you identify who has built what. If that is built by user, you can see the username. Okay, so what's the username? Admin. Apart from admin, can we have more users? Yes, we can have more users. We'll talk about that probably in the next session. So regarding users and their permissions, but this is how you just go with the build triggers concept. But now let's talk about, are these build triggers clear? 4 type of build triggers. Now, so which one is used mostly? If you are using GitHub repository, that's a build trigger. Or if you are using repositories like Subversion or Bitbucket, it is Policium. So very rare, we don't go with build periodically. That's very rare conditions. Okay. But this is a question that's a frequently asked question: the difference between build periodically versus police year. Okay, then how your builds been automated for your GitHub repository. Then, so back to other build trigger, which is build after other projects. Or you can say other jobs. So how does it work? I have two jobs, let's say job 1 and then job 2. I want to build job 2 after job 1, or else whenever I trigger job 1, that job 1, once it is built, then job 1 is going to build job 2, and then I have more jobs. Let's say I have job 3. So I want to build so in a sequential wise. So first job 1, then job 2, then job 3. So that is, we are building one project after another project. Okay. So let's go with, say, let me explain the practical example. First, we'll see how it works, and we'll see the purpose in some time. But let's see how the build triggers works, because these build triggers will be using for the deployment purpose. Okay. But since we are in build triggers, I want to show you how this works. Okay. But now moving on to, let's take some project. So this is my Linux project, Linux job, and then so build triggers and go with build after other projects are built. I want to build this project after something like Windows job. Okay. Now, so what is the first job will be triggered? What is the first project? Windows, right? So this is what is the example. Job 1, job 2. In this example, job 2 is the Linux job, and the Windows job is job 1. So this is your job 2, and this is your job 1. Okay. Then we have some conditions. So in this, and moreover, so we have two jobs, Linux job and then Windows job. Linux job is what we call downstream project, and Windows job is what we call upstream. Upstream and then downstream. So what is upstream? The initial job is called upstream project, and what is the downstream? The downstream will be the second project. Okay, so this is an upstream and this is a downstream. Since Windows job is triggering upstream, the downstream project, which is Linux, so Windows is called upstream. Okay, that. So we have some conditions. These are the conditions. These conditions are for upstream project conditions. So what are the upstream project conditions? Trigger only if build is stable. Which build? Is it downstream project build or upstream project build? So these conditions are for upstream only. That's what I said. Now, if my upstream project is stable, that means if my Windows project is stable. So what is stable? Stable means continuous success. So build number 1, success. Build number 2, success. Build number 3, success. This is what we call stable. Then, so we have unstable. Trigger if, only if build is unstable. What is unstable then? Success, failure. Build number 1 is success, build number 2 is failure, and then success, failure. That is what is unstable. Then what is fail? Continuous failure. The first one is continuous success, second one is continuous failure, third one, I'm sorry, and second one is success, failure, success, failure. So now, so let's see how these conditions work. Save it. I'm going with stable condition only. So here you have upstream project. So what is upstream? Windows is upstream. Then what is the downstream? This is the downstream. Now go to Windows project. Then you have downstream. Okay. Now let's try to build Windows job. Let's see. So build it. So it was a failure, right? So what is the build number? Build number 8 is a failure. So then let's check it out. Is my downstream project is triggered? So what is the current time is 2:18, right? At 2:18. So do you see that downstream project is triggered?
No.
No. Why?
Because get selected like trigger only if there is.
Yes, because since you can see that configure, we have selected condition as trigger only if build is stable. Since my condition was so stable, but the job status was failure. That's why build is not triggered. Let's change the condition. I would go with fail. Okay, let's see. Why fail? The reason is we have continuous failures. So I'll change the condition. Let's see. Now, back to the upstream project again and try this build now. So why it is a failure? The reason could be different, but I want to check the conditions. Yeah, the condition is, what is the status now? Again, it's a failure. But look at the job in Linux job. Is it triggered? That is triggered. But how do I know this build is triggered by the Windows job? Console output started by the upstream project, and it what build number? Build number 9. But that is again originally triggered by the user. Which user? Admin user. Okay. So now back to the job. Again, configure it. So not this one, right? I'm sorry. Back to the Linux job and configure it. And then build triggers. So there it is. So what is upstream project is Windows, downstream is Linux. Okay. So I want to take, let's go with post build actions. Let's say. What is post build action is? What do you mean by post build? After the build is done. Okay. After the build is done, I want to trigger some more jobs. Are you clear? So in the previous build trigger, I've set up a build trigger. What is that? Build after other projects are built. Okay. So this condition, so what type of job we set up over here is we set up the upstream project. Okay. What is my downstream is? This is the downstream. So being in the downstream project, I'm setting up an upstream project. Are you clear? Then, so being in the same downstream project, can I set up another downstream project?
Yes.
So this is my job 2. Being in job 2, I have set up my upstream project as job 1. But still I'm in job 2. I want to set up my downstream project again. So, but in what case? After the job is built. Once my job is successfully built, then I want to trigger another job. So since we are saying after the job, then we go with post build actions. So in post build actions, I select an action called build other projects. So build other downstream. You see that? What is that? We select the downstream projects. So in the above case, I have selected upstream project, but now I'm selecting downstream projects. But these downstreams, as usual, they would be triggered as an post build, after the build. Okay, but so go with the downstream project. And what is the downstream project name? Give some job name. Why this is not popping up? Moreover, just a second. Why this? Let me refresh this. Take this again. Let's go with automated. This is manual. I'm sorry. I want to go with automated. So what do you mean by automated? So these conditions. If you go with that the other one, so there is no conditions actually. Here you don't have any conditions. So if you go with this, so you go with the manual automated steps anyway. Then you select your project name. That's a project name. This is what is automated. But in the previous one, when I was trying to type the job name, it was not giving me a drop down list, but now it gives a drop down list. That's a difference. And other one is the conditions, stable, unstable. Now tell me, these conditions belongs to which project? Linux project, Linux job. Okay, why?
Because it is the upstream project for us.
Conditions always for the upstream, not for the downstream. Downstream will be just triggered, but the conditions are always for the upstream. So what is upstream then? This is upstream, Linux is upstream. So go with the condition, let's say stable. My upstream project condition is fails, and downstream project condition is which is stable. But this condition belongs to the Linux job. But Linux job is an upstream for the Java compiler. Okay. Now, so save it now and go with. So let's try with the Windows job. Now you see that Linux job has an upstream project as well as a downstream project. Now try this Windows job and let's build it. That's build failure. Even though it was a failure, your downstream project must be triggered. There it is triggered, but that's a failure. Since it's a failure, your Java compile should not be triggered. That is not triggered. Okay. So why it's a failure? That is different, but I want to change the conditions now. Configure it. I want to go with the conditions. Where is that? Post build actions. So sorry, this is Windows job, right? I'm sorry. Go with your Linux project and then change the conditions. So go with fail conditions. Now again build the Windows job. Start from the first. Build it. Project build. Yeah. So 26. Okay. Then check the Java compile. That's in progress. Okay. First, I have triggered the Windows job. You can see that console output that started by admin user, and then so that's a failure. That's because of we are running that on Windows project. Okay, that's okay. Linux, you know what I mean. And check the Linux job console output. This is started by the upstream project at build number 11 of Windows job. That is originally caused by the admin user, and then you have a downstream project which is a post build actions. So even though the job is a failure, it has triggered another job which is Java compile job. Go to the Java compile job That's the status. Check the console output. This is started by upstream project, which is Linux project. Okay, build number 9, and that is originally caused by the upstream, which is Windows, and that is originally caused by the admin user. Okay, so this is how the jobs are triggered. Now, so in these examples, can we go with multiple upstreams or multiple downstreams? So we have only one upstream and then one downstream. Can we have multiple upstream downstreams? So configure. So go with the build triggers. Now I would select multiple upstream projects. Something, okay? That's my upstream project. I select another downstream project. So we have multiple upstreams, multiple downstreams. Okay, save it. Now, tell me, this is a downstream for both jobs. What are the jobs? So for these two jobs, so what is the downstream project is? Linux. Now, in order to trigger my Linux job, so do I need to trigger both upstream projects or any one of the upstream projects? Right. So is it like in between these two? Okay, these are upstream projects, and then for them this is a downstream project, and for that there are a couple of downstream projects. Okay. So now, is it like, do I need to trigger both upstream projects? Is it like OR condition or AND condition? If I want my Linux job triggered, then so do I need to build both jobs? Is it like OR or AND? How about this? Whenever Linux job is triggered, both will be triggered or one will be triggered? Understand the question? Is the question clear? So let's try this. See, this is upstream projects are always OR condition. Any one of the jobs. Downstreams are always AND condition. So when I go to this job, Windows job, right? This is my Windows job. How many downstreams I see? Only one downstream, right? So whether you trigger Windows project or else you trigger this other job, so your downstream will be triggered. That is OR condition. But whereas when you go to downstream, so when this project is triggered, what kind of conditions we have set up over here? In what conditions we have set up? What is the section we have selected? Post build actions, right? Since they are under post build actions, so all the post build actions will be triggered. That means both jobs will be triggered successfully. Okay, so you just try that, observe this. So try to trigger one upstream project and observe that. Are you able to? So see Linux job is triggered. Once Linux job is triggered, observe that both jobs are being triggered. Are we clear? And trigger both builds at a time, both upstream projects. How many builds will be for Linux job? 2 different builds. Why? Because it is OR condition again. Are we clear? Right. So we take these examples in deployment step. So for example, I have a continuous integration job. After continuous integration done, I would proceed with deployment. So what is upstream project? In this example, continuous integration is upstream and then deployment is downstream. So like this, I would like to do multiple deployments. Okay. So we talk about the in the time of deployment steps. We'll talk about it. Okay. So yeah. So try all these 6 build triggers. We have discussed 6 build triggers, which is build, other projects. The other projects. Okay. So, but this build trigger, you find it on in post build actions. That is not under build triggers. That is under post build actions. So, yeah. Any questions? And as usual, tomorrow we have AWS sessions, same time, 8:30. Tomorrow, day after tomorrow. Yeah. Any questions? Able to do the setup, Jenkins setup? Nodes are launched. Okay. Thank you.